Item 2.2, declaration and roll call vote of subjects discussed in closed meeting. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the certificate of closed meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Hodges. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon-Stewart. Is there any discussion? There being none, Ms. Lau, may we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Bohannon-Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Dr. Gibbs?
Yes. Item 2.3, approval of personnel action. May we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the personnel action as listed.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon-Stewart. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.4, seeking a motion for the approval of parental request for release from compulsory attendance for religious reasons. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the parental request for release from compulsory attendance for religious reasons as listed.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon-Stewart. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are now adjourned from closed session. Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, August 18th, 2026 Mathews County School Board regular monthly meeting. Would you please join me for item 1.2 in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1.3, Ms. Lau, may we have the roll call taken, please?
Ms. Bohannon Stewart,
Here.
Mrs. Hodges,
Here.
Mr. Morgan, Dr. Gibbs.
Present. Thank you. Item 1.4, may I have approval of the agenda additions and deletions? May I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as listed.
Thank you, Mrs. Hodges. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon Stewart. Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1.5, seeking a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the July 21, 2026 closed meeting and regular monthly meeting. Where is it? July 30th, 2026 summer work session minutes, revised school board meeting schedule, revised policies, and monthly claims as presented on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon Stewart. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Is there any discussion?
I just have a question.
Yes, Mrs.
Dr.
Hodges.
Gibbs. I couldn't figure out what changed on our revised school board meeting schedule.
I believe that was the location of the Thomas Hunter Education Center
Okay, thank you.
rather than the Thomas Hunter
Thank
Middle
you.
School. Any more discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 1.6, Mathews County School Board Governance Norms and Protocols. Mrs. Hodges, would you be so kind as to read our next two bullets?
Yes, I'd be glad to. And for those who've not attended a meeting before, there are certain protocols that we all agree to as board members that we will adhere to over the year, and these are just a handful of them. We agree to the following protocols: developing the board agenda. The chair, vice chair, and superintendent develop the agenda. 2, placing items on the board meeting agenda. The board members contact the chairman to add an item to the agenda, and that information will be shared at the agenda setting meeting. Information should be sent to the chairman prior to the agenda setting meeting with the superintendent 1 week prior to the board meeting to be updated to align with policy. Number 3, obtaining information about board meeting agenda items before the meeting. The board members will contact the superintendent prior to the meeting with any question on agenda items that require additional information.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Hodges. Item 2, we will now recess for our summer graduation ceremony.
Good evening. Please remain standing for the playing of our national anthem. Please be seated. It is my pleasure to introduce the Superintendent of Mathews County Public Schools, Dr. David Daniel.
Thank you all and welcome to our summer commencement exercises for the class of 2026. So this is a special evening where we are able to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of our several fabulous young men and women who are before us tonight. Class of 2026, I want to congratulate you on your hard work, your perseverance, your willingness to get the job done or get it done a little bit earlier than was planned. So congratulations to you and your hard work and all the things that you have done, and I wish you all the best in the things that lie before you. Congratulations. And now, Miss Caitlin Dodge.
Graduates, I wanted to be able to express to you this evening how proud we are that you've reached this wonderful accomplishment. You've worked hard over the summer to finish your requirements and graduate from Mathews High School. This is truly the first step to a bright future for all of you. So take what you've learned over the past 4 years, both educationally and personally, to guide you to a successful future. And I just wanted to say congratulations. So at this time, we will provide diplomas to our graduates. So when I call your name, come on up to the stage. Lauren Nicole Johnson. Alex Paul Kellum. Madison Lynn Lowe, I'm sorry. James Allen Morgan. Ava Lily Street. Parker James Yeager.
Members of the class of 2026, please rise. As principal of Mathews High School, it is my privilege to have had the honor of conferring in front of those assembled here this evening that all of you have met the requirements set forth by the Virginia Department of Education and Mathews County Public Schools necessary to receive the diplomas that were issued here today. Please remain standing for the conferring of diplomas by the Chairman of the Mathews County School Board, Dr. Mary Ann Gibbs.
By the power vested in me by the Board of Education and of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the Mathews County School Board, I hereby confer upon you your high school diploma. You may now move your tassel from the right to the left. Congratulations.
Members of the class of 2026, please remain standing. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you the Mathews High School graduating class of 2026. Congratulations. This concludes our ceremony. Thank you for joining us to celebrate these graduates. It's truly amazing how many people come out to celebrate our graduates, and congratulations. Thank you.
The recess from the graduation, which was wonderful. Much luck and success to all of our summer graduates. Item 4, School Board Student Representative. Dr. Grieve, do you have a presentation for us?
Dr. Gibbs, members of the board, it's my privilege to announce that Jack Hyde, a senior at Mathews High School, will be taking on the role of student representative. He is going to attend the September meeting as his first meeting. He's a product of Mathews. He's been in our school system for ever since kindergarten, and just a really interesting young man. You guys will get to know him. Absolutely brilliant, one of his top students of his class, but has a lot going on where he like rewires boat electronics and all sorts of things, working at Zimmerman's Marine, and he's just a really interesting young man. So I can't wait for you guys to get to know him.
Thank you so much. We look forward to meeting Mr. Hyde next month, and we really appreciate that warm introduction. Thank you, Dr. Grieve.
Thank you.
Item 5, Student Achievement, 5.1, the tentative pass rates, review of student performance and support framework, SPSF, from Dr. Daniel.
I'm going to need the SPSF report. All right, thank you. So I'll talk a little bit about expected pass rates. So some emails from the state. They are intending to release pass rates for the state on August 25th. We've got some tentative numbers. Based on those tentative numbers, we have improved in 18 of our 27 SOL tests from last year, so we're excited about those gains. That builds on 21 out of 27 increases the year before. So again, we're kind of stacking success year after year. We also realized gains in some of our non-SOL assessments. So our universal screening data, we show increase year over year with cohorts of students as they go from, say, 3rd grade to 4th grade. But we also see increases from this year's 3rd grade as compared to, say, last year's 3rd grade, for example. So we're seeing those gains kind of stacking year after year. So I'm excited not just for the release of those pass rates to be able to share all of the data with the community, but it then leads into the school performance and support framework, which has many, many, many more variables to it other than pass rates. That data, those indices or school rankings or however you want to describe it, that won't come out until probably the first week of October. But I want to spend some time tonight talking about some of those elements, sometime in September, talking about some of the other elements. So when the SPSF comes out in October, you have a better understanding of all the variables that go into that rating. Hey, okay, so August is data validation month. So here are some of the timelines and some of the things that we are going to be working through with data. So for example, we spent some time yesterday afternoon at the elementary school working with the elementary admin on some of their data, making sure that the records that get uploaded to the state are accurate and that what the state is reporting is the same as what we are reporting, so that everything lines up as it should. Okay, so this diagram should look fairly familiar. So basically what at that kind of the top area where it says elementary and middle and then high school. So under the elementary and middle, you basically have 3 buckets of data that goes into the elementary index, overall index. So that's a growth bucket, a readiness bucket, and a mastery bucket. The same, you still have 3 buckets at the high school level, but instead of growth at the high school, it gets replaced with graduation. You still have readiness, you still have mastery. Those buckets of data get distilled down to basically 100 points. And so based on a school's score out of 100 points, you then fall into those performance categories. The state is still has the potential to change some of the names of those performance categories, but we still anticipate there being 4 performance categories. Those performance categories then align with federal identification. So you have kind of state accountability, and then you have federal accountability. And in previous years, those things didn't always line up. So tonight I'm just going to talk about growth, and I'm going to talk about mastery, and we'll come back to readiness. We'll talk about readiness a little bit next month. Okay, so did I click 2 or did I just click 1? Okay. All right, so at the elementary school again, so you see kind of what goes into those buckets. So at the elementary school level, the mastery level is reading performance, math performance, science performance, and English language progress. The English language progress only counts if you have a large enough population of English language learners, which most times we do not. So if a school does not have a large enough population of English language learners, that 10% gets sort of split and redistributed back into either reading and math. So reading, I'm trying to think of kind of where else to kind of pick up. So within growth, well, let me back up. So mastery at the elementary school, that is 65% of the overall school's score for that leads to their performance category. So 65% is for mastery, 25% is growth, and then 10% then is readiness. So talking a little bit about growth, there's reading growth and math growth, but growth is only in grades 3 through 8 in reading, and 4 in math, it goes up to Algebra 1. So grades 3 through Algebra 1 for math. At the high school, yes, sorry.
So, 2 questions actually. So since we have K through 7, and I see elementary over here, and I see middles over top of it, I'm not quite sure, is there a grade that it separates the 2 between elementary and middle?
It does, hold on.
Okay, and then, all right, let me go back to I should have asked this one
That's okay.
first. Let's say that we had everybody that did mastery in elementary school, and there was anybody that did growth. Do they count in both columns? Like you master it and growth?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think previously, growth was only brought in if you did not pass, and
Right.
that is no longer the case.
Okay.
And it was not the case last year either. So so this is year 2 of the SPSF. So the metrics and how the indices are calculated was very different last year. They were tweaking that all the way up until the data was released. They've done some revision over the summer, not as extensive as in years past. But there have been a few tweaks and adjustments as to what counts, what doesn't count, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll get to some of those questions about a school's grade configuration and then what constitutes growth within, like if you pass, like if I pass advanced in 4th grade, what happens in 5th grade and what does that look like?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Again, just another way to look at the data and how it's broken out for the performance categories for schools. Again, elementary school mastery is weighted 65%. And again, mastery is just did you pass the test? And we'll talk a little bit about the different score categories between passing and not passing, because it's broken into kind of 4 categories as to where your score is. Growth is 25% in elementary schools, 20% in middle schools. Again, growth does not appear at the high school, but growth is based on vertical scaled scores. So that's a continuum of scores from basically K through 8th grade in reading or K through Algebra 1 in mathematics. So it's not just the SOL score, there's a vertical scaled score that is a continuous, index or scale, if you will, from kindergarten through that end grade, whether it's 8th grade or math, 8th grade or Algebra 1. All right, Ms. Hodges, to go to your point about grade classification. So we're on the next slide. So for Mathews, our elementary school fits in this category, and that's not going to highlight on the screen, but it's because we are K-7. So we would the Mathews Elementary School will fall under a traditional elementary school structure. The high school, because 8th grade is at the high school, it's going to be considered a combination school, which is on the next slide. So where 8th grade lands depends on whether you're a middle school or whether you're a combo school. So that's kind of the tipping point for a lot of the schools. So, and the next slide will show you what that combination, that combo school looks like. Thank you. So again, that center column, because Mathews High School is grade 8 through 12, Mathews High School will get a little bit of mastery because 8th grade is listed as part of our high school. So the calculation for Mathews High School is going to look different than those previous slides where I talked about a traditional high school not having growth. Because of the presence of 8th grade, their weighting of those variables looks different than a traditional 9 through 12 high school. So for Mathews High School, reading mastery is at 15%, math mastery 15%, science mastery at 10%. And then you come down to where you have reading growth and math growth that contributes 5% each. Again, the 4-year graduation rate and readiness we'll talk about a little bit later. So just some updates. So previously, last summer when we had talked about growth, how growth was calculated was very different last year from how it will be calculated this year. That's one of the tweaks that occurred over the last school year. So what had happened last year was all the student data was sent to kind of a lab, a place in North Carolina, where they analyzed every student who, say, if I was a fourth grader and I got 485 on my reading score in fourth grade, and then I scored 500 in fifth grade, they looked at every student who scored 485 in fourth grade and compared my current year score against one another. And so growth from year to year varied based on the students who were involved each year. What they changed to this year is having established value tables based on those vertical scaled scores. So let me show you. All right, hang on. I'll pick up with growth in a second. So let me talk about mastery weighting, and we'll come back and discuss growth in a second. So mastery weighting, I talked a little bit about mastery. You would think is just passing or not passing. That's not quite the case. So a student who scores pass advanced scores a 1.25 in the calculation. Ideally, each student is 1 point. You want every student to pass. So you want 1 point in the denominator in the calculation, if you will. So a student who passes advanced counts 1.25 in the numerator of that calculation. Pass proficient, again, is that expected or anticipated 1. If a student does not pass in the basic level, it counts 0.75, or that child counts 0.75. Below basic is 0.25. So basically, students who don't pass on the test, their scores towards the overall accountability then reduce that school's performance, if you will. Make sense as much as it can so far? And so these categories for mastery go across the board for reading and math, and I believe science this year. So here's another way, another way to look at mastery. So if you have a middle school of 100 students, 40 of them pass at the advanced level, so 40 times 1.25 per student, that's a total of 50 points for those students. You have 10 who score at the basic level, that's 10 times 0.75, 40 at the proficient, that's 40 points, 10 who are at the below basic, for 2.5 points. So out of that category area, you would score 100 points, or 100% of the possible growth points for, say, reading. So if you remember there, growth, depending on middle school or that combo school, if growth is worth 12.5%, and you got 100% of your points, you got all 12.5 points towards your 100 total points. Brains hurting yet? All right, so going back to growth in reading and math. This got all jumbled up. I'm sorry, when it went from PDF to PowerPoint to Google Slides. So I think you can get kind of the gist of the presentation. So previously, as we mentioned before, growth was only, if you didn't pass, then for the school, if a student didn't pass, you could recoup some points in terms of your pass rate from growth. So you could get a point if they grew, if they went from range 2 to range 3, you could get a point for that student in the overall kind of combined pass rate. So now growth is based on if a student goes from, say, in grade 3 to grade 4, if they go from that sort of orange range 1 in grade 3 to that green box in grade 4, they would earn a point for that growth, that expected growth. If they move 2 categories, 2 ranges, that's more than expected growth, so that would be 1.25 points to the overall calculation. The frustrating part for me is if you're in the pass advanced range and you're in range 7 and you stay in range 7, it's still only 1 point. So you can pass advanced, but because you didn't move up the next vertical scaled score moving into range 8, you're still at 1. Like usually a pass advanced is a celebration is great. But in terms of growth, you kind of max out when you get to the ceiling. The only way you can stay in maxing out that growth index is if you stay at that highest vertical scaled score. Okay, that's kind of a jumbled mess. So again, it's going into different scenarios and where students then end up losing points. So you could pass and be in range 6, pass proficient in your 3rd grade year, and then in your 4th grade year, be in range 5. And so because you didn't stay where you were or move forward, that regression on that scaled score is a reduced point index for within that growth calculation. So growth is a whole variable in and of itself, along with mastery. Growth is super difficult for us to predict based on students, because you have to download their vertical scaled score and track year over year their vertical scaled score to be able to attempt to tabulate what our performance is going to be on the SPSF. And it takes a while, and you have summer test administrations and things along those lines. Okay, so an idea of what the vertical scaled scores look like. They kind of look like really good SAT scores, but that's not what they are. So it gives you an idea from reading levels in grade 3 through 8, math in grades 3 through algebra 1, and then kind of what's expected and how, because I think we're used to having conversations about 400 being passing, 500 is the mark for pass advanced. But the vertical scaled score is what informs mastery. And then you have to look at like what gets factored out in terms of mastery and growth. So depending on when, in many cases, when a student moved into your school district, moved into that school, do they count towards your calculations or not? And then you get into refusals and cheating codes and parent opt-outs and what counts, what doesn't count against kind of the school's metric. Is that the last slide? Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? And that's just mastery and growth. We haven't even touched 3 readiness and 3E calculations in the coming months. This is the simpler of the calculations.
First of all, thank you for explaining it at another level. So for me, it's going to be many times reviewing it to comprehend it. But to that point, this school performance and the details that you just outlined and explained is just one example of the many demands on our central office. And I just want to make sure that people at home and here understand some of the things that were not in place 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and beyond the responsibilities of our central office. This is not something that you just submit the information and then they tell you what it is. There's a lot of back and forth, and it's very tedious, and very time-consuming. And I think this is an example of one of the many things that time is spent on. And I noticed when you spoke about that in June 2026 is when they passed the rules for fiscal year 25-26, a little bit late in the season. So again, we don't even know what the rules are until the school year is over. So I just want to make sure we all understand that this is not clean and simple anymore. And it never has been simple, but it just becomes increasingly complicated. And the rules change every 2 to 3 years. So you think you understand it, and they change. So it's, again, I thank you for this opportunity to
And I would add
lament.
One of the key pieces for the high school mastery is it's looking at the graduating cohort and not who took the tests that year. So we'll talk about pass rates probably at the next school board meeting and be able to say, okay, this is how the school did this year in terms of pass rates. That's looking at everybody who tested this year. But then in October, when the SPSF comes out and those performance categories come out, it's not linked to this year's mastery rates for the high school or the combo high school. It's based on the cohort that just graduated, and in many cases, how they did in their math classes years prior. So some of that data that were, while they're making up the rules in June for the previous year, it's based on test data that's in some cases 2 or 3 years behind. So that's, again, part of that conundrum. And I understand the philosophy, you're trying to assess a school's performance in growing kids from 9th grade to 12th grade and preparing them for life outside of high school. But it's really difficult. Like if we're waiting for our school performance and support framework to make decisions at the high school, it's 3 years old. Like that data is 3 years old. Shame on us if we haven't done anything with 3-year-old data. So that's again just part of looking at those rankings and the pass rates, and well, this doesn't make sense. Why does it make sense? Is somebody lying? And so no, nobody's lying. It's just it's different sets of data that leads to then different conclusions. So.
I agree with everything Mrs. Hodges said. We have faced these detailed discussions before. We will continue to face them. I appreciate that you're breaking this down into bite-sized bits because for the edification of the board and the public to see, this will take many readings and many trainings to understand. I do not feel that this is necessarily going to lead us to, we won't know for a long time, is this appropriate? But nonetheless, this is the task set in front of school divisions at this time. As Mrs. Hodges said, things tend to change every few years as well. So I appreciate the staff's efforts, your efforts
Thank you.
in doggedly digging into these details and sharing them with us in bites that we can begin to process. Sure. This is no easy feat, and all of the efforts are so appreciated. I did have one just quick question. How many hours do you think staff hours have been spent on the learning and getting up to speed, being trained or learning, inquiring of this method for us to be able to use it?
The recorded training webinar from 2 weeks ago that I pulled some of these slides from. So I had to leave after an hour. So the recorded webinar, I believe, was 2 hours just to walk through about 70 slides, how to go through all the different roster reports and all the various pieces of data. I know Ms. Hunley goes through as our division director of testing, She has regular monthly updates on the testing process that sort of feeds into the accountability side. But then we have several sessions over the years on what's changing with accountability, how to calculate the process. Then we spent probably 2 hours with the elementary school late yesterday, kind of working through questions. I've probably spent individually I probably spent 2 to 3 hours pulling reports from the state website to format them, to get them to the high school principals, or excuse me, both sets of principals and both sets of admin, so they can then begin combing through the spreadsheets and looking at, like for example, we got into kids looking at readiness at the elementary school, because that's basically their attendance rates. So we were digging through, okay, this student is listed as potentially chronically absent. What date did they enroll? What's the percentage? And then how many days did they go to after-school tutoring? And then can we apply the rules to recoup some of the time from after-school tutoring into their chronic absenteeism? And then we've got to get somebody else to re-upload that data to the state files. So it's 5, 6 different people kind of huddling around, going line by line of a spreadsheet to verify every cell in a spreadsheet to make sure it's accurate and the data is right. So it's for me to give you an estimate. I can probably in the last 2 weeks, probably 15 hours between webinars and prepping, trying to get this straight, because it matters.
And that's incredible. What an amount of work that it takes to focus just on that and on nothing else. And we know that there are many other things that are going on. So keep us posted. We look forward to September's meeting when we learn the next bite-sized bit of this framework. Thank you. We're up to item 6, citizens' questions, comments, or requests. Comments not pertaining to personnel or student matters. Protocol for public comment period. Mathews County residents and school employees wishing to speak should sign up with their name and address on the sheet provided. Each individual will have 3 minutes to speak. Comment period will end after 90 minutes. All comments should be directed to the school board. Speakers shall not address matters involving students or personnel, as these topics may violate confidentiality and are not appropriate in a public forum. Public comment is the school board's opportunity to listen to the speaker. Since our purpose is to hear from you, the board will not engage in dialogue with the audience or whomever is at the podium. Matters requiring a response will be directed to the superintendent for research and response. The superintendent may report back on such matters at a subsequent business meeting session as appropriate. The school board carefully considers your comments when deciding on matters brought before us. We appreciate your attendance and your input. We have one speaker signed up tonight, and that is Mr. John Matheson.
Good evening, John Matheson, 46 Edwards Creek Lane, Gwynn, Virginia. I'm coming here to you tonight for 2 reasons. Number one, as far as the Gwynns Island Civic League Foundation, we have another dime to donate in September. This is a special one. It's called Strike Up the Band. It is on September 10th, Thursday, at the Seafood Shack. All monies are going to go to the music departments at the high school and at Mathews Elementary School. So we want to get them some money as well. It is open from 11 to 8, so please come by, and everyone in the community to come by. We'd also like to thank our sponsors for this, which are Gloucester Refuse, Inn at Tabbs Creek, the Bailey family, and the Matheson family, who are all sponsoring this event. So I hope to see everyone there. The second thing, real quick, after watching that presentation, I think the positive thing we should take away from it is, if we graduated a lot of kids who knew how to statistically model mathematically model, they'd have jobs for the rest of their lives at the Virginia Department of Education and would have wonderful careers. So that's kind of what I took away from it, but thank you for all the information that you gave to all of us as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Matheson. Is there anyone else who'd like to approach the podium?
Richard Hicks, North Virginia. The following is a book review by the president of the Virginia Citizens Defense League, Philip Van Cleve. The book in question is titled The First 30 Seconds, subtitle, The Active Shooter Problem, America's 4 Decades of Failure to Adapt, What America Must Change to Minimize Victims. The author is one Ed Monk, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army, retired. The book, First 30 Seconds, takes a detailed look at many of the past public mass shootings to help glean as much information from them as possible. One thing that is clear is that to work through a problem like minimizing the number of casualties at a mass murder event, you must take emotion out of the equation and only work with fact, logic, and reason. The author starts by first asking the school administrator or business manager a very simple question. How many casualties are you willing to accept before someone with a gun is able to stop an active shooter? The typical response is hopefully none, to which the author replies, quite correctly, hope is not a plan. Another common statement is, but our school is not a battle zone. The author's retort is, once the first shot has been fired. The author unflinchingly says that planning to limit the number of victims of a mass murder is a function of time and basic mathematics. Statistically, in the first minute, a mass killer typically shoots one person every 3 to 5 seconds. Note that the number of victims per minute drops somewhat as time goes on, and the book covers those values. So, if the goal is to keep the number of victims shot to less than, say, 10, then someone must engage the killer within the first 30 seconds after the first shot is fired. Time and math. If a good guy with a gun is not in the immediate area when that first shot goes off, it is highly unlikely that they will be able to neutralize the killer within those first 30 seconds. It takes time to realize that what is being heard are gunshots, and that assumes a good guy was even close enough to hear the shots at all. Then he has to figure out where the shots are coming from, run to the location, figure out who is doing the shooting, and then engage and neutralize the threat. The time to call the police and for them to arrive and do the steps above is well into 5 to 10 minutes. By that time, a lot of people have already been shot, or the killer has run out of victims to shoot. Even when they arrive, police in some situations have mustered outside the school while the murders continue. If the goal is to minimize the number of victims, the answer is clear. There needs to be as many armed good guys as possible distributed in the building. Have you ever heard of a mass shooting in a Utah public school? The answer is no. Perhaps that is because anyone with a concealed handgun permit in Utah can carry a concealed handgun in a Utah school. Teachers, parents, air conditioning repairmen, janitors, administrators, etc. The deterrence factor is huge. Who
Mr.
would the
Hicks?
bad guy shoot first, not knowing who is armed?
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Thank you very much.
I will finish in the second comment period. Thank you.
Wonderful. Item 7, Superintendent's Informational Reports. Dr. Daniel will have 7.1 through 7.5.
All right, so before you have from Ms. Hunley, our July presentation. Instead of asking Ms. Hunley to kind of go down, do you want to go down to the stage or do you want to talk through it? Okay. Yeah, I guess, if you could go ahead and lower the screen and then we'll sorry for folks at home. We're adapting to a slightly different environment for our school board meeting tonight, so we're having to adjust a bit.
The financial report for fiscal year 26, just give you an update on that. Once we have the last payroll for August and the final bills for the end of the month, we will be able to finalize fiscal year 26. And then this information will be presented in the September board meeting. Those expenditures and revenues, we have to report them to the VDOE through the annual school report by September 15th. And this is a snapshot of July as far as the revenue and expenditures that have posted. At the beginning of the school year, there's not a lot going on as far as revenues coming in, and it will make up as far as you see the discrepancy as far as from the revenue to the expenditures. The county usually puts in the money to cover those balances until we start getting more from the state. And just to highlight, we received $275,811.36 in revenue, and we expended $716,024.75 in expenditures. That's it for my report. Is there any questions?
I just noticed, I didn't notice it earlier, on the Title II classroom instruction, travel and conferences, we have only spent 11.5% of that budget, of those monies allotted for it. So do those money then go back, or do we, can we roll them over to the next year?
What you're looking at as far as there is for fiscal year 27. Are you looking at the line item?
Oh, okay. Okay, so this is for next year.
That's fiscal year, yes, for next year.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Hundley, thank you for presenting, albeit brief, but we appreciate seeing you every month, and we appreciate all the hard work that you're doing for the division. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so going on to 7.2, just some highlights on the reorganization at Mathews Elementary School. So again, we welcomed teachers back last week. The administration has been working diligently on fine-tuning master schedule, procedures, things along those lines. A lot of work has gone into developing that schedule, trying to balance class sizes, because you're bringing in some elective teachers, and we're trying to balance out all those elective classes along with sharing space at the high school. So we're busing some 7th graders over. We have Algebra 1 students kind of going back and forth between those campuses. So a lot of work has happened, both with, again, like on that schedule, but also too, there's been a lot of reorganization of where classrooms are going. So Ms. Bray and leadership at the elementary school wanted to make that back hallway really where the upper grades are going to be housed. So all of 6th and 7th grade will be on what was last year that 7th grade hallway, the band hallway, which years ago was the 8th grade hallway. So all of the 6th and 7th grade math, reading classes, social studies classes, science classes, et cetera, will be on that back hallway. Where Mr. Williams once was will be some health and some other support classrooms on that side of that back hallway, kind of back towards where the special ed office was. So some of that got delayed because of construction or like renovation with asbestos removal and paint and lights and things along those lines. So those projects are coming to a close. Those teachers are setting up their classrooms. We're still getting some whiteboards installed, getting some panels installed for teachers in those spaces. But it's racing along. I'm sure there will be a few kinks in the schedule, and we'll make some adjustments once class sizes and once we know enrollment for sure. But they've been working hard to acclimate new teachers to the elementary school, setting up classroom expectations at grade levels, and having a cohesive philosophy pre-K through 7. So I think the benefits for our students and our families are going to pay off from that consistency, where you're not having an elementary experience and then you get jerked into kind of a very different middle school experience and then a very different high school experience. So there will be some continuity and consistency at the elementary schools, some vertical teaming, vertical alignment of content and skills and sharing of resources, and then students will transition over to 8th grade. So a lot of work has been done on the back end to get ready for the opening of the school year. Any questions from the board on K-7? No. Okay. All right, so moving into maintenance updates. Caleb, is that on a Google slide where I can click on that? Yes? All right, I'll come down and do that. Oh, that's what I want. Thank you.
The clicker does seem to be misbehaving. If you just want me to do it.
Yes, it's not as much fun, but yes. You're not even taking it back. Okay, yeah, it's working. All right. So for the board, what you're looking at is similar to it's the same slide that we talked about at convocation. You just have all of the projects already on the screen before you. But to highlight for folks looking at home, in our packed house tonight here at the high school, the Harry Ward Auditorium, we're going to run through a few of the things that our maintenance crew, and a ton of credit goes out to Tim Tillage and his team of maintenance workers. And I will say, I think again, we're a year into the partnership with the county on maintenance merger, and it really has paid dividends in terms of projects that have been accomplished. So our FCCLA classroom here at the high school basically had to be gutted because of asbestos in the flooring. HVAC controls at the elementary school have been replaced. The fishbowl is a space here at the high school, so that's been painted. Some of the sprucing up around that fishbowl has taken place. Massive job cleaning out our air ducts at all of the schools. The company reported it was the worst they had ever seen. Access control system is underway, so in terms of security and having better controls and quick readiness to lock down buildings, that is going to provide that a big jump for us. The Head Start playground behind the high school has been removed. LED light replacement has occurred across the division, so we are probably at about 90% converted over to LED lights across the division. The elementary school workroom has been refurbished. The light poles around our, I'll say, soccer field and marching band competition field, those light poles have been removed because they were rotting. They were nice fodder for woodpeckers to find insects, but they were quite the hazard going forward. The boiler and water heater replacement is getting ready to move forward as they sunk the LP tanks today at Thomas Hunter and the elementary school. At the high school, they removed the ethylene glycol from the chiller system here. I think in the last 2 summers, about 90 to 95% of the walls in our school division have been painted. That includes door jambs and doors and railings and everything. So there has been a fresh coat of paint applied to just about every space in our school division. The rotting in place robotics trailer that was behind the high school has been removed, the metal extracted from it to be sold or recycled. Again, going back to the FCCLA classroom and asbestos abatement, as we were going through, we abated a couple additional spaces while they were here, but that is going to lead to the need for a much larger abatement. We need to begin to have those conversations about abating floors and abating spaces here at the high school. So as we were, again, that sort of doing the work in Ms. Williams's classroom uncovered, like, that part of the building, you have 2 layers of floor tile. And so that blue tile is overlaying some brown tile. That brown tile is asbestos. And the blue tile is deteriorating. So as we look to replace that blue tile, we're going to have to go through and replace 2 layers of tile, one of which is asbestos tile with asbestos glue underneath. So that's an upcoming pretty significant project. Again, exterior painting, I mentioned about 90%, 95% interior, but they've done a ton of painting on the exterior on hot summer days. The high school foyer opening, so that's this side foyer where the ramp is coming in. So some walls had been removed to open up that foyer for ease of access. Again, asbestos abatement. So we finished the second half of Thomas Hunter. All of those floors have been abated. New tile has been laid. They're finishing up kind of the shoe molding tile, if you will, in some of those spaces, but it's probably 95% finished in terms of getting it back to, I won't say normal because it's better than what it was. Chiller replacement is coming at the elementary school. That we were hoping for late August. We don't have a date yet. I'm okay with that stretching into cooler months to replace the chiller. The tennis courts at Port Fun are being replaced. They were, I think, laying that pavement today or finishing that project today. Some of the gym floors have been skimmed and recoated. The walk-in freezer behind the elementary school kitchen has been completely replaced. We are waiting on, I don't know why, I guess I have chiller replacement on here twice. We haven't replaced 2 chillers. We will need to replace the chiller here at the high school within the next probably 2 years. So that's a pretty significant price tag as well. I'm trying to think what got highlighted as moving around. Okay, ceiling tiles and vents. So again, in the last 2 years, while we've painted everything, just about every ceiling tile and every vent across the division has been replaced. The band room here got new carpet, new paint, so they pulled out I think was probably the original carpet from what, 04, when it was, when the band room, this addition was added. Our bus loop got paved as part of the kind of the tennis courts paving project. So the bus loop here at the high school has been repaved. Boiler replacement for the Thomas Hunter Center, so that remaining boiler is going to be replaced as well. There was a carport outside of the cafeteria here at the high school that was purchased with some COVID money to hand out lunches during COVID. All it was doing was blocking our security cameras at this point So that was disassembled to be used elsewhere in the future. So this is the list that we were kind of planning for the summer, and what we just talked about were the big projects that happened, but there were also a lot of little projects in terms of redoing benches outside of the high school in Mathews color, getting trees removed that were rotten and overgrown, and clogging up gutters around the schools. So just a lot of maintenance with an attention to making the appearance of our schools look better. I mean, we have charming facilities when they are maintained and when we have the capacity to maintain them and the investment to maintain them. So just a ton of work. That work is going to stretch into a little bit of the school year. That work has bumped into our ability to really effectively clean and scrub and shine everything. So while there was a fresh coat of paint, the walls look great. We had workers kind of stomping over our floors all summer trying to get into change control systems with HVAC or clean the duct work out, or working on our access control system. So again, the cleaning and the shining of the floors had a little bit of a setback. But our custodial team has been working diligently as well. They brought in extra crew to come to the high school to get the high school caught up, because the high school was without AC for a big part of the summer. So you can't lay floor wax and scrub floors when you don't have AC to have it to dry. So this was the list of things we were trying to get done this summer. The vast majority of these things we were able to get done. And when I say we, I mean Tim Tillage and the maintenance team. I was, in most parts, a consultant, and like, hey, when is this going to get done? I got teachers coming back. That tended to be my role on this. But just a tremendous effort and investment in the schools. Any questions on summer maintenance projects and where we're going?
I just want to express my awe and how much has been accomplished in a very short period of time. It's amazing. Finally, it seems like all of the asbestos issues, I think, have been uncovered, and maybe for the first time we can really say there is no asbestos in the middle school, rather than kind of discovering as we go along. Let's hope in a short period of time we can say the same thing about the high school. So thank you so much, and thanks to all the staff that worked to try to get all these projects completed.
You're welcome.
I was just going to add that the list was unbelievably ambitious, and yet I think with just a little bit of time into the year, it will be completed. It's amazing being in this school tonight, walking those halls. You can really tell the difference, the brightness, the freshness. It's beautiful. So thank you so much to everybody, and I'm hoping next summer won't be quite as needy, but maybe it will be.
So we're, Mr. Tillage and I are trying to find some time this week to begin mapping out next summer now.
Good.
I know, because we had some conflicts with, like camps and various things that were to take place in the schools, and so we're trying to map out what those projects look like now. So I don't want to approve something, or I don't want to say it's going to be in one location when we know, when we can go ahead and plan those maintenance projects out at this time. So that's kind of where we are right now, trying to think a year, 10 months ahead.
That's great, and it'll be here before we know it, so
Yes.
very good. Yes. Do you have a presentation for 7.4, Dr. Daniel, on the pre-service weeks professional development?
It's not a presentation.
Okay.
So just a little bit of highlight, kind of, there are two attachments for the board to review, but both principals did an outstanding job also in coordinating with Ms. Hunley, a lot of the professional development for these 2 pre-service weeks. We've really tried to focus on instructional related topics, whether it's improving literacy instruction. A big focus for this summer has been on special education and collaboration and working to build that partnership between special educator and regular educator to benefit our students. So if you see anything with TTAC, that's part of that training and that collaboration. We have new math, some textbook materials coming in both schools. So that's really been the bulk of what we're working on. But it just giving the board members an overview of kind of what the trainings are. Also, as a reminder for the board, staff members also do some online modules. Those get assigned once they return, and we give them about a month to 2 months. They usually do around mid-October, early to mid-October, for those modules. So that's the bloodborne pathogens, some Title IX, sexual harassment, kind of the required training that I think a lot of employers require employees to go through. So those trainings are on top of the in-session things that we ask our teachers to do. So 7.5, the school-based financial reports, giving you, again, an idea of kind of those school-based reports. We'll begin having conversations on how to move the Thomas Hunter legacy funds over to the elementary schools. So Ms. Hunley will be working with Ms. Norris on that project. And once we get school open and everything ordered and supplies in-house and all of that stuff. So that's the lift right now, is getting school opened, and then we can begin to work on some of these legacy things.
Backing up to 7.4, I wanted to give, show my appreciation to you and Ms. Hunley for the setting up of the professional development. The focus on instruction is essential. It looks comprehensive. This is exactly what is needed. This is exactly what we would expect to have happen, but we know it doesn't happen easily. And so the quiet work in the background will pay off. I'm confident in the strength of our educational staff, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So I do remember doing all those online modules and having a month or so to do that. And even though I was like a biology major, after, about 5 years, I really got tired of going through the bloodborne pathogen. Mm-hmm. Is there any kind of pre-test that they're starting to offer to save teachers time? Because, I probably didn't need 15 years of bloodborne pathogen,
No.
for the ones that don't change, and if they can test out of it.
No, it's still about 2 hours worth of combined worth of modules somewhere. Ms. Hunley brings up a good point. So the new teachers have a few more modules. Veteran teachers have a few less, depending on kind of your role and things along those lines. I mean, it's almost like the SPSF sort of stuff. The more, hearing it again and again and again helps you to remember, like, if it's wet and sticky and it's not yours, don't touch it, which is kind of the distilled version of the bloodborne pathogens training. But yeah, so it is what it is.
Questions or comments? No.
Thank you for that detailed list of what they, did, and I appreciate it.
Moving on to item 8, school board committee and informational reports. We have 8.1, the school board conferences and webinars. As usual, keeping track of all of your mandated trainings and other trainings, high quality professional development that are required. Item 8.2. Oh, and let me just, yes, regarding the board and committee reports by school board members and superintendent. Does anybody have any reports that they'd like to make regarding any other committees or boards that they serve on?
Would this be a good time for me to ask that question about surveys, I think? Or should I say that for later? The superintendent's survey.
I think we'll save please.
Climate.
Let's save that.
Okay.
Okay. Regarding Board of Supervisors meetings, we see our dates there, and August will be you, Mr. Morgan? August 20th. Regarding item 8.3, the local composite index discussion, the LCI, Mrs. Hodges, would you like to review the, and we can discuss it, the meeting that we had with Ms. Phillips and Mr. Walsh, and kind of give our community an idea of what we spoke on? Yes.
As many people in the community know, that what our county pays for public education is based on the LCI, which is what they call the local composite index. And ours is, in my opinion, incredibly high. It has been since I began on the board many years ago. And we've talked about it. I remember my first VACS School Board Association meeting in our small groups. They talked about it, and that's been 12 years ago, and no one that I'm aware of took action. So after our legislators came and walked through our buildings and met with us in November, I felt like we needed to. That in tandem with our LCI went up this year, which means that our county's paying even more for our public education than previously. I felt like it was time that we needed to attempt to work with our legislators on the concerns we have, in my opinion, the unfairness of the way that Virginia decides that. And so at our work session, we talked about this, and we came up with a letter that, first, I reached out to all the Board of Supervisors members to let them know what we were planning to do. And Dr. Gibbs, myself, Mr. Walsh, and Ms. Phillips met and talked about how to proceed. So on behalf of the school board, a letter has been drafted that is going to go to 3 of our, I'll say our sister school boards that also have very high LCIs. That's Lancaster County, Northumberland County, and Middlesex County. And to reach out to them to see if they are willing to work with us, with our legislators, meaning our state senators and our state delegates. So that letter should go out hopefully by the end of this week. And then hopefully we will hear back from them. Simultaneously, we're sharing this with our Board of Supervisors members, and it's their intention to do a similar letter to the same counties. So hopefully collectively we can get some momentum and at least have a conversation with our legislators about let's do something different. And as I've thought about this over the many years, what I came to realize is that what we've done before is compare county to county in our data and our pass rates. And I don't think we've taken enough time to look at how this affects all of our students in Virginia. And I believe that our delegates and senators have a responsibility to not just look at their districts, but to look at the impact it has across the state in student achievement. Because if you look at it and you drill down and you read about it, and in fact, There's been a JLARC study that has addressed this. Not much has been done in the General Assembly based on this JLARC study. But if you look at that, our students are the ones who really get shortchanged in the way we fund our education. So I don't know if you can fill in anything else, Dr. Gibbs, because you were in the meeting as well.
Well, thank you for letting me participate in the meeting. It was strictly your efforts in spearheading this endeavor, and I know that I can speak on behalf of the board members. We are all very grateful to you for doing that. We will support you in any way that we can, and I was heartened to have a great conversation with the two board members,
Yes.
the Board of Supervisors. We're all on the same page, and so we have a great collaboration going on this issue with the Board of Supervisors, and once again, I applaud your efforts for championing this effort. It's a tall one, but I believe in you, and I know we can do it. This is a
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having conversation with our delegates and our senators.
absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. Members, any other comments on LCI while we're at it?
Thank you for taking this on, Mrs.
Oh,
Hodges.
certainly. Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Dr. Daniel, do you have any comments? No? Nope. Okay. All right. Moving on to 8.4, out-of-county tuition discussion. This topic had come up at our work session where, and maybe even prior to that, where we were kind of looking at our rates for out-of-county tuition payers, and I believe Dr. Daniel has some outside division, other division information in terms of what they charge versus what we charge, and this is just for strictly discussion and information at this point. Attached, you see we have policy JECF, which is not a policy, it's an application for admission non-resident student. It is current, is not corrected for the two-school model. I do not believe that correction has been made. But anyway, this gives you an idea of what our current application looks like. And perhaps, Dr. Daniel, you could give us some detail on the other school divisions' pricing to fill in our discussion here.
Sure. So I reached out to school divisions who neighbor us. Two of our neighbors responded this morning. One charges $3,200 for out-of-district tuition. The other neighbor charges $1,000 for the first child in a family, $500 for the second child in that family. They also account for, if you qualify for free lunch, it would be $200 for tuition, or reduced lunch, reduced meals would be $500 for tuition. So they have more of a, I guess, a sliding scale for what the cost would be for out-of-district students coming in. And as a reminder, for folks who didn't tune into the work session in July, so the board in, I believe it was July of 23, changed Mathews' tuition rate to $2,500 per student, grandfathered in the previous rate of $1,000 per student for students who'd already been accepted as non-resident students. So we've been sort of managing, some folks are charged $2,500, some students are $1,000, and kind of managing that. And so it's generated some conversation among families, who gets charged what, when was I enrolled? Because we've gotten into some, well, was my child in preschool under one rate, and does that count? Does it not count? And things along, some of those questions have arisen. So just having a broader conversation about our tuition rates, but I think also as our school division, as we try to compete in many ways, having a competitive tuition rate, I think, helps us potentially to attract families to come back to Mathews or to send their students to Mathews. So do you try to get the money in the tuition, or do you try to get the families and get the state allocation for those kids? And the more students we have in, that then helps then reduce our local composite index. So I think it's some conversation that we can have about what's the appropriate price point for tuition rates for us. Do we see it as a way to help incentivize or encourage families to leave our neighbors and come to Mathews, or maybe not to pursue some of the private school options nearby? So, I mean, it's just, again, fodder for discussion. I think whatever we do, I think revisiting this conversation around budget season would be appropriate to say, okay, this is what we are planning to charge for tuition, and bringing that in, because it would have some slight impact on our budget. So.
Thoughts from members?
Based on what you've seen so far, because we don't want class sizes to be too big, and do you think it would be more beneficial to go back to charging $1,000 per student, and then maybe we can get more of that state money? And another added benefit might be, I mean, we struggle to put some sports teams together. Maybe that's the kid or two that ends up making that sports team possible.
My recommendation right now, looking at numbers, would be to back off of that 2,500, whether it's 1,000 or 1,250 or something along those lines. That would be my recommendation, and I would just make it consistent across the board. Whatever we land on this is our tuition rate, and this is what and that's why I think it's important to do it during budget season, so we can announce that this is what is going to be for the upcoming school year. I don't think it would be fair to say for the board to make a decision today for Monday, this is your new rate, because we've had several families already pay. So I think this is kind of that conversation for January, February, March, to think about, okay, what do we want our tuition rate to be? But I think it makes some sense to I think we'd be okay to scale it back, because I think it has more potential to bring in families than it does to make us money. And on the long term, the more families we have, the better off it's going to be for us.
I appreciate Ms. Bohannon Stewart's thoughts about our sports programs. And I have historically been a proponent of attracting tuition paying students, and I think we do need to lower it. I would say that whatever we fall upon, whatever we decide on, that we need to stick to it for several years and not bounce back and forth. That doesn't bode well for our division. I will say, though, there have been arguments on the other side that say that sometimes when we have tuition-paying students, they have access to the same opportunities our Mathews County kids have. And sometimes it might knock out what's seen as our kids, when a tuition-paying student might go to governor's school for that, for example, things like that. So once they come, they're eligible for anything that we offer all of our students. And I just want us to be mindful of that as we move in this direction. But I think we need to attract students. We can decide who we want to accept. So if it's a higher achieving student, that helps us in many ways. And again, sports, band, all of our activities, it can only, I think, enrich it. So I support it.
Yeah, I support it too. I feel like it might be time to get back to 1,000.
Okay. I would just add one One significant change in terms of extracurricular activities, the Virginia High School League new rules for eligibility and residency go into effect this year. So historically, it was where you started ninth grade was what established your eligibility for high school sports. That has backed up to where you lived or where you started in eighth grade is now what establishes your eligibility for your high school, like the feeder program that you would feed into. So it doesn't have a huge impact for us per se, but for a multi-middle school and multi-high school divisions, you would have kids sort of hopping around based on program interests or coaches or whatever. So anyway, the impact is if you're a tuition student and wanting to come to Mathews and then participate in Mathews athletics, it would be best to start that in eighth grade. Otherwise, you have to sit out a year before you're then eligible, if you don't already live in Mathews. So you would lose a year of eligibility if you started somewhere else in eighth grade and then came in ninth grade, which is a change in what it has been for a very long time.
And that applies even if your parents just move, or no?
The eligibility, there are about 27 criteria for high school eligibility, so it almost makes our SPSF look simple. But if the move in school is not associated with a move in by the guardians, then that's where that eighth grade residency piece. But if you started school in eighth grade in Gloucester, the family bought a home in Mathews, and you did ninth grade in Mathews, so long as the move in school is associated by a move with your parents from one location to another, then you're fine. It's if you say, oh, well, I really like, the tennis team is phenomenal, or I want to go be on that golf team, so I'm going to enroll as a tuition student to be a part of that golf team, you have to sit out a year. And it's a lot.
Dr. Daniel, do you have the number on out-of-county tuition students at this time?
10 right now.
Okay. All right, something to consider. 10.
10.
10 out-of-county currently. 10 out-of-county students.
That's what we're expecting right now.
So we look forward to solidifying this in the future. I just, on the final note, not to repeat it too many times, but consistency. Theme of the work session, once again, rearing its head. And just to be efficient, we need to be consistent. So I'm sure we can make that happen. Moving to 8.5, again, and 8.6, we have samples of the SBMA bylaws and the SBMA governance manual. These two elements were brought up in our work session. Again, these do not have specifics for Mathews County Public Schools written in them, but they do have, everything else is fleshed out with simple edits to be made to tailor them to our division. Again, the bylaws being the way that our board governs itself, and the governance manual reflecting the way the board governs the division. I think these documents, both of them, are very substantive, and as I mentioned previously at the work session, I would like to move these two documents forward to action to adopt them going forward, but at this point, we're just on a discussion. Would there be any discussion desired by the board?
I liked what I read, particularly the order of events and meetings. I liked everything that I read for the most part.
Mrs. Hodges?
Yes, as I reviewed, especially the bylaws, what I realized is that most of those are what we already have in policy. We're taking our policy and overlaying it and call them bylaws. So I would ask that maybe what the next step would be before we vote on it is as part of our policy review, that maybe Mr. Morgan and I can, at least I would like to, look at our policies and see what might not be in here and vice versa, what might be in the SBMA, it's in our policies that we might want to add to make sure that it's comprehensive. Because I think like the first chapter, well, that's not how we have it listed, but it talks about a lot of the things that are in the bylaws.
Sections A, B, and C are basically lifted directly. Those policies would become bylaws and governance manuals. So
Correct, but I just wanted to compare the
Sure.
two that we already have in place to make sure that, that we aren't missing something we
Right.
want to add, or vice versa.
Understand that, and I do think SBMA has done at least a cursory, if not an in-depth
I think they have.
analysis of that as well, but sure, I'm not opposed to having the committee work on that as well. I think that's a great next step. Mr. Morgan, did you have something to add to that too?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I just wanted to emphasize that bylaws and policy are two totally different pieces of, or two totally different documents, I guess you would say. Bylaws govern the board. That dictates to the board what we can do, cannot do, and of course by law what we must do. This sample bylaw here, this model bylaw, cites the legal authority of the codes. I think there are two or three codes altogether. And it also explains the power that the board holds within legal boundaries, of course. And the bylaws are written to promote orderly, accountable, and restrained self-government. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I know there's been some confusion, and I'll admit that I'm new at this, and I'm still learning as well. But there's been, I think, quite a bit of confusion as to what is a bylaw, what is a policy, and of course, in regulations get in, and it all gets confused for some reason. But bylaws apply. That kind of restrains the board to what we can and can't do, as well as within our legal obligations and authority.
Great. So we will, that will segue us nicely into 8.7 with a policy committee report, our standing committee, a policy with Mrs. Hodges and Mr. Morgan.
How about the governance manual, 8.6?
Well, I kind of discussed those two together, but let's go ahead and 8.6, take a look at that, open that. And are there any separate comments regarding the governance manual? Again, the governance manual reflecting how the board governs the division.
I liked most everything I read in that too. Particularly like 10.3 was talking about asking good questions. I love that, especially since I just read a book about leaders asking questions. I read a great audiobook about that. Great leaders ask great questions. And I like the 10.6, the governance calendar. Love that too. So particularly just to highlight the ones I like the most.
Again, I thought it was very comprehensive, very thorough. Sorry, Mr. Morgan?
No, you're good. No, I think the bylaws and the governance manual sort of work in tandem. The governance manual would sort of direct how the board governs the division. We know it's our duty and our obligation and our responsibility to govern the division, but the governance manual sort of gives us guidance. Within the law, of course, we have to be within all of the legal boundaries, we understand. But from what I get out of it, reading it and looking at it, I think the bylaws and the governance manual are sort of work in tandem, in my estimation.
There are no other comments. We'll move on. 8.7 now, policy committee report. If you'd like to say a few words, Mrs. Hodges, Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, as soon as I can get my screen cleared here.
Okay.
anything particular?
I'll defer to you right now.
Okay,
I'll
well.
let you start out.
All righty, it looks like I'm going to start this thing off. Just in case anyone doesn't already know, Ms. Hodges and myself, along with Dr. Daniel and Ms. Hunley, have spent quite a bit of time recently working on policies, trying to satisfy the new legislation that has been handed to us by the state regarding new policies. And some of those legislative pieces, we are able to just maybe tweak some of our existing policies, add a few lines, remove a few lines, what have you. But we have been working pretty hard on that. We've had lots of meetings, spent quite a bit of time on it. And some days we left as confused as we started, but we put a lot of time and effort in it. And as you will notice coming up here very soon in the next few minutes, there will be some action items on some of these pieces, and hopefully there'll be some discussion before we vote. But I would just say currently we are working on meeting the requirements of this new legislation, as well as trying to reorganize and sort of streamline our policy manual. It is very, very confusing, and we're really working hard to try to make it more user-friendly. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Hodges, see if she'd like to add some things, tell me what I missed.
No, I think you said it very succinctly. It's been a lot of time, and that's just trying to address the things that we've discussed that we need in place before school begins. Just
Right.
those July 1st new legislation that need to be in place that we will be hopefully approving next on the agenda. Because SBMA is new to this, there have been some hiccups, and that has put more work on us to make sure that we are clear about how we're moving forward. We have old policies, we have some confusing numbering, and we spent several hours the other day just to get to the policies we're going to approve tonight. I think it'll be easier going forward. I hope it'll be easier going forward, but we are making progress.
Yes, Ms. Hodges, I do believe it's going to get a little easier as we learn more things regarding policy and the difference between policy and regulation and so forth. I think we can simplify these issues by a fair amount, I do believe.
Thank you for your hard work on this, Mrs. Hodges and Mr. Morgan. I appreciate it.
Agreed. Thank you for your efforts on this. It's not easy, and it's a mainstay of the board's work at this point. So thank you for your diligence. Moving on to item 9, action items. 9.1, seeking a motion for the adoption of Regulation JED R3 attendance guidelines. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the regulation JED-R3 attendance guidelines as listed.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon Stewart. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hodges. Do we have discussion?
I would say more clarification than discussion. We've had an attendance policy in there for a good while, and most of it is going to stay intact as it has been. The biggest portion of this adoption is a new piece of legislation that requires school divisions in Virginia to give military family visitation. And I'll read the paragraph. A student whose immediate family member is an active duty member of the uniformed services shall be allotted 5 excused absences per year to visit that family member when the family member has received orders for deployment outside of the United States, or is on leave from such deployment, or is recently returned from such deployment. The division may require written documentation verifying the leave or deployment. So this is really just an addition to our current policy, and it is required, the legislation does require that we have this as policy.
This is a regulation, not a policy, just to be absolutely clear. And the code of conduct, of which this document resides as well, is also serves as a regulation. So my point in the discussion here is, do we need to adopt JED R3 when we have the verbiage in the appropriate place in the regulation named Code of Conduct?
I believe, and I could be wrong, that our Code of Conduct is reflected in some other policy or regulation that we have elsewhere. So if someone is to say, why did you come up with this, we can refer back to regulation and policy and say, this is where the board approved it. This is what we did. That's how I conceptually think about it.
But the Code of Conduct is a regulation by definition.
Code of Conduct is a regulation. That is correct. That is correct. I was looking for the...
I can't move. I think maybe eventually we'll get there. From my perspective, and I've said this before, I can't wrap my head around doing all of these things at the same time. To me, it's a process. Let's get our policies in place. Let's get them from VSBA over to SBMA. And then if we haven't sorted out what should be a regulation and what should be a policy, we can move in that direction. But to do all of that at one time is too much for me. I'll just say that. It's just too confusing, too chaotic. We spent 4 hours the other day proving like 6 policies or six new laws and where they needed to be. I think we'll get there, but I can't doing all that at one time. That's just my thought.
Yes, Dr. Gibbs, you were very correct in saying that Code of Conduct is a regulation, but is this absentee or attendance guideline, is that not a current policy?
JED is the current policy.
Right.
JED R3 is the current regulation that's been modified. JED is referenced in the Code of Conduct as well as the components of the body, the content of JED R3, with one minor difference. Would you talk to that point?
So, okay, so the one minor difference is in our Code of Conduct, it does talk about when students are miss more than half of a class period, they would be counted absent, where that specific phrasing doesn't occur within our regulation. It also goes into we have some leftover language that talks about going back to some of the things that Mr. Dobson would often ask us about, like what's the number of absences that go into grades. So there's actually some legacy language, I think, in the regulation that then refers to these are the types of absences that are related to in terms of a student earning a grade. So that's the only place that appears anywhere. That's not, that verbiage about attendance and grades does not appear in the Code of Conduct. I'll also make a note for the board that in the consent agenda, you approved the new language for military family visitation in policy JED. So most of, if not all of JED-R3 is repeated language from the from the policy that you approved. So just, well, I agree with Ms. Hodges. I mean, we're trying to go through an awful lot in terms of regulations and policies. I will say that R3 does appear to be fairly redundant between what is in the policy and then what we do have in our code of conduct. Also, in terms of some historical perspective, we haven't had, this is year 3 of a division-wide code of conduct. So I think there was a need for some of the regulations to help allow school-based behavioral manuals or whatever they wanted to be called. So that would allow support for those school-based handbooks to go back to those regulations. But the board is approving a code of conduct that has a lot of this language in it.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes, ma'am. I stand corrected. I stated a few moments ago that there is a policy required for this. I was mistaken. There is not a policy required for this. They recommend putting it in as a regulation or in the handbook. My apologies for missing that. That being said, it is my feeling that we could vote on that particular paragraph of this new legislation, new law, as a regulation to be attached to the attendance policy. Anyone have any comment on that?
I do, because I thought that, if I just may add, that we as a committee have made a recommendation in what's in the vote. You know, what we have to vote on.
Right, we've made a motion on.
No, but when a committee comes up with a recommendation, that generally
Yes.
is, and I may have to go back and read Robert's rules. Really, you don't need a motion on it. The committee is making these recommendations. But even that aside, when we've met, we came forward with what's in front of us for our action items. So I feel like for either the committee's going to do the work, and maybe there may be minor changes as we go along, but to have this lengthy discussion after 4 of us have already spent and had a lengthy discussion on it undermines the committee's work.
Well, I appreciate the work of the committee, but of course the committee then brings the information to the board.
Right.
And we do have a motion on the floor to adopt this regulation, but I think the discussion is noteworthy as we will basically have duplication. And at what point do we decide to not do that anymore when we have our next item up will be the adoption of the Code of Conduct, which has virtually the exact language in it already and serves as a regulation. So while we're learning, going through the process with the policy committees, going through the process and learning the difference between policy, regulation, handbook, procedures, all of that, I think this is a very appropriate conversation to have at the proposed adoption of the regulation. I do not mean to undermine in any way the work of the board and of the committee, the policy committee, but I think this is the work of the board to grind through these exact issues. And I feel that it would be much simpler to leave the regulation aspect in one setting and not have it duplicated somewhere else, and where we can see it is the same thing. Get it streamlined into one document, the Code of Conduct. We know that's where that is. I see that is simpler to me in my mind, the way I think.
That's pretty much the way that I'm thinking of it. I remember when I was reading through everything to prepare, thinking, well, didn't I just read this? You know, when I was reading it in 2 separate places. And I'm a big fan of simplifying things. I do appreciate the work of our policy committee, but, you know, as a board member, I want to, when it's brought to me, I want to weigh in on things. And I feel like we kind of, I feel like simplification in this complex world where I'm listening to this new SPSF thing that sounds like it's making more things complicated, the more we can simplify things. Charge one fee for tuition maybe, and then simplify policy regulation whenever we can. So it's my 2 cents.
And I'm going to push back here because I do think your points are well taken, and I think we'll get there. But I think to have the massive amount of policies we have to go through, have some pieces that are regulations, but not everything that's going to be regulation. And so it is going to be duplication. It's going to be duplication for a while. It's going to take us years. We're not going to get through this in a year to get all of our policies from VSBA. We talked about this last week. VSBA to the way SBMA is organizing it. And so I think we'll get there, but to have a regulation here, but then the other ones that should be a regulation are still in policy. And I would rather have the duplication so we can do it in an organized, methodical manner. And that's just we've talked about it. That's kind of what we have agreed upon as far as committee and with the superintendent and assistant superintendent, that it's going to take a while to get us where we want to be, to your point, and not be duplicated. But it will be, from my perspective, for a while.
Thank you, Mrs. Hodges. Is there any more discussion? Ms. Lau, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Bohannon Stewart?
Nay.
Mrs. Hodges?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Dr. Gibbs?
Nay. So we have a 4-member board. We have a tied vote. So this motion will be pushed to the next meeting where we have a full board. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.2, adoption of the 2026-2027 Mathews County Public Schools Code of Conduct. May I have a motion?
Do you want me to do it?
I make them, oh, I'm sorry, I read the wrong thing. No, it's not coming up.
9.2?
Yeah, but it's not coming up on my.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt the 2026-2027 Mathews County Public Schools Code of Conduct.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon Stewart. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hodges.
I'm still trying to figure out why it's not
Do you need to
refreshing
share?
correctly.
Do you need to share a screen?
Linda, you want this?
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I looked at it just a minute ago. Thank you. I did. Because it was corrected.
I will say we did have some relatively minor changes to the Code of Conduct this year. Dr. Daniel, would you, and if you'd like to speak to this, that's great. We'd love to hear your comments.
Sure. I mean, again, minor changes to this year's Code of Conduct. I will compliment the SBMA review for compliance. So some of the changes to this year's Code of Conduct are a reflection of the General Assembly changes. So the first one is our cell phone violation consequences. To be compliant with the new law, we had to change the third offense, because our third offense for a cell phone violation was anywhere up to like numerous suspensions. Like you could be suspended for a third violation. According to the state code, you can't suspend students strictly for the cell phone violation. For defiance of turning it over or things along those lines, yes, you can, but just having the cell phone itself could not result in an ISS or an OSS. So we needed to change that verbiage within the code of conduct. We also, based on, again, the General Assembly language, put in language about being able to possess a cell phone for a documented health need IEP in section 504. We've already had that within our regulation, but just putting those words in the code of conduct. Oddly enough, we needed to update the verbiage to include the prohibition of smoking hemp products, because apparently we hadn't covered smoking hemp in our code of conduct, but we've got that covered now. We also, due to consolidation, we also worked to remove middle school, so we needed to cover some of that language, and also updating our school and school board directory information. I will say, as we've had some of the conversation about JED-R3 and making sure some of the old language in R3, if we want to make a technical edit, if there's a minor technical edit to the code of conduct, that we can add that before we distribute and post, but nothing that would be a significant change.
Mrs. Hodges?
So, Dr. Daniel, do we actually hand them a hard copy now, or everything's on, it's just electronic?
Yeah.
I know in some communication I referenced it, but I realized,
Yeah. If we needed it printed, we would have had to approve our code of conduct probably in April, May timeframe to allow all the printing and finalize all the details.
Thank you.
So our plan is to, once approved, we'll post on the website, we'll email it out to everyone so that they have access and have received.
Any more questions or comments?
One thing I noticed in there, I guess because for years it was a school rule that I was trying to enforce that students may not chew gum. I mean, I think that's a great rule and everything, but I guess if, it ends up, my experience was I had trouble enforcing that because at the time that I went, it wasn't being enforced evenly. If we do have rules that we could let go because they're not being enforced and, we need to concentrate on certain things. I'd love to hear teacher feedback on that one throughout the year. I don't have a problem approving that tonight because I think that is a good rule, no student gum chewing, but if it's something that they don't think was worth enforcing, then I'd love to hear their feedback on that for the next year. So.
And to that point, I think feedback and thoughts about edits for next year's code of conduct going forward, perhaps, and I know it's tricky because we have so many variables that are changing throughout the summer, and it seems like the code of conduct is always just ready to go right at the beginning of the school year. But if in any thing that we can address or discuss as a board earlier on, a few months earlier, that in terms of feedback or any other changes that we know, of course, but because this is a very substantive document, and you have done a fantastic job with creating this code of conduct, Dr. Daniel, and our division has benefited from having it. So for us to get more involved, just with a little bit more notice on some feedback type issues so that we can make sure that we are as accurate and efficient as possible with this information. That's all I have on this. Anything, Mr. Morgan? No? All right. If there's no more discussion, then we'll take a vote. Let's take, Ms. Lau, would you mind a roll call on this one as well? Thank you.
Ms. Bohannon-Stewart?
Yay.
Mrs. Hodges?
Yay.
Mr. Morgan?
Yay.
Dr. Gibbs?
Yay. Thank you. All right, item 9.3, adoption of policy TBD/SSN 0826, the parent notification on safe storage of firearms and prescription drugs. May I have a motion? May
I
have
make a motion to adopt the policy TBD/SSN 0826, parent notification on safe storage of firearms and prescription drugs as listed.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon Stewart. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hodges. Any discussion?
I think that it's, I mean, of course, I want everybody to store their firearms and prescription drugs safely, but I'm a bit irritated that somebody thinks it's our job and that legislation was made that makes it our job to do this, you know? And I don't think you can legislate common sense. Anyway.
And just a little backstory on this. This is a result of new legislation. This is brand new policy. This is a sample policy. It's very simple. It's very, in fact, it is so, let's read it. Would anyone like to read?
Sure, I'll read it.
Thank you.
Within 30 calendar days after the first day of each school year, the superintendent or designee shall provide the parental notification required by Virginia Code, Section 22.1-79.3, F in parentheses, to the parent of each student enrolled in the school division by email and, when applicable, SMS text message. The notification shall contain the information required by Virginia law and may satisfy those requirements by providing links to authoritative governmental resources. The notification shall be made available in multiple languages on the school division website.
Thank you, Ms. Bohannon Stewart. Questions, discussion? Oh, Mrs. Hodges?
I'm grinning. I was waiting for Mr. Morgan to make a comment because we spent much discussion about this new law. And to Ms. Bohannon Stewart's point, she's made an excellent point. And it can be a slippery slope, as we discussed that almost ad nauseum between Mr. Morgan and myself. But it is the law. And so how do we implement it? Because it is the law. So is my fellow committee member going to weigh in on this, Mr. Morgan?
Very little. Everyone knows, it's no secret, everyone knows my feeling on this. I just overreach, in my opinion. However, it is the law, and we are required to have policy on it. And this seems like the most sensible way to do it since we just don't have any choice.
And I have a problem with that not having any choice as a board member. Yes, this law was made, it was determined, but I believe it is outside of the scope of a school division or of a school board. Why is this type of direction not given to law enforcement to promulgate, or to the health and safety department of some sort? Why? I'm curious. Why is it on us to do this?
Is that rhetorical?
It's rhetorical, but you can answer if you would like.
I mean, we have access to the children, that's why. And I agree with you. I agree with you. But when there's having to get information out that involve children, the most common sense place, I guess, that legislators think is the schools. But private schools aren't doing this, so not everybody's informed of it. And again, as I've been lamenting to my friends, for parents, the ones who will probably read this are the ones who are already probably putting, their medications away, that don't need to read this. And the ones that, might need to benefit from this, I suspect are not going to be reading this and say, oh, I need to start doing this. Oh, have an aha moment. I don't think we're going to have many aha moments from reading it. That's my perspective. But you're right, it's outside the scope. Well said. Outside the
Thank
scope
you.
of schools.
Thank you.
Public schools.
Yes. This is overreach in my mind. Out of our lane. This is out of our lane. Those are my comments. If there's no more discussion, we will take a vote. Ms. Lau, would you have a roll call vote for us, please?
Ms. Bohannon Stewart,
Yay.
Mrs. Hodges,
Yay.
Mr. Morgan,
Yay.
Dr. Gibbs.
Nay. Item 10, citizens' comments on items discussed during our meeting. The same rules will apply. Is there anyone who would like to approach the podium? Speak again, Mr. Hicks. I cannot hear you.
Well,
There we
there we
are.
go. Thank you. So I was doing a book review, the book being The First 30 Seconds, subtitle, The Active Shooter Problem. Boy, we're loud, aren't we? America's 4 Decades of Failure to Adapt, What America Must Change to Minimize Victims. Arthur Ed Monk, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army, retired. And let me pick up here towards the bottom, where have you ever heard of a mass shooting in a Utah public school? The answer being no. And perhaps that's because anyone with a concealed handgun permit can carry a concealed handgun in a Utah school. That being teachers and parents and air conditioning repairmen and janitors, administrators, etc. The deterrence factor is huge. Who would the bad guy shoot first, not knowing who is armed? But Virginia schools and many other schools have stubbornly insisted on using mass shooting prevention methods that have been repeatedly proven to be worthless. Administrators must face this reality. There is no such thing as a nonviolent solution to an extremely violent problem. No classroom will be safer than one with a teacher who voluntarily took on the responsibility of being armed. I highly recommend reading First 30 Seconds. It is filled with useful information about saving lives from mass murderers. 200 pages long and easy read. The book explains the problem with what is being done now, how we got here, provides important statistics, details the solutions, and shows how to argue for the solution. The author even includes cases where desperate victims were able to stop a mass shooter without using firearms. That is far more dangerous for the defenders, but not impossible in certain cases. There is no reason why Utah schools should be the only ones providing such a strong deterrence to mass killers. They have not even had an attempt at a mass murder event in Utah. And thank you. And if you have a question for yourselves, you might ask, how many people in this room have a concealed carry permit in their wallet? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. We're at 10.1. Oh, sorry, Mr. Applegate. Thank you. Oh, my goodness.
Randy Applegate, CTE teacher here at the high school. I wanted to take a moment to thank Dr. Daniel, the board, the county, specifically Tim Tillage and his crew, for the hard work you've done this summer. Coming in a few weeks ago, I didn't think you could pull it off. But man, what a difference it's made. The brightness, the lights, the ceiling, the rails outside, everything. It really is a great job and a tremendous effort on all of your parts. Thank you. One other point I wanted to bring up was our new robotics team that is going to be competing, VHSL. Brian Donnelly could not be here tonight. He's out of town, and poor Ken has made himself sick working so hard to get the team organized down there in our little auto shop. But I wanted to thank them for their efforts. Truly dedicated people to a cause, and I think we're going to have a really good year with the 8th grade technology class coming in and joining in, and I think it's really going to start rolling well for them. So I wanted to thank all those people.
That's excellent. Thank you, Mr. Applegate, for that report, and the congratulations to the staff. Yes, it's great. Right. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment at the podium? There being none, moving on to item 10.1, school board member comments. Do any members have any comments this evening? Ms. Bohannon Stewart.
I need to press the button. So I'm in awe the longer I do this job of how much our superintendents have to manage. I'm quickly realizing things are more complicated than I thought. But I do have a question about some questions. At our last work session, we had talked about survey questions. Because like the climate survey results don't come in a timely manner, and we want that feedback. And I believe we had decided we would distribute these about 2 times a year, but I was wanting us to see those questions, I guess, before they were distributed. And one question in particular that I really would like to see on there is, it was a question that was asked of me on a New Kent Public Schools exit survey. But like, why wait to put it on an exit survey? They wanted you to rate your administrator on how well they exhibited a willingness to admit and correct mistakes. We all make mistakes. I make plenty every day. And I just think that's a really important question to ask. And I would like to see those questions before they are finalized. So, because I think we should begin with the end in mind. And I guess I'm also going to wonder, are those going to be, as soon as those are decided on, are those going to be given to the administrators, the other administrators? Because they're a huge part of the climate too. I think it would be wise to share it with all of them. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
May I get a clarification on the rating your administrator on the willingness to admit
and correct mistakes.
And correct mistakes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's a very important thing. I did that a lot as a teacher. I messed some things up sometimes, and when I did, I apologized to them. Hey guys, I shouldn't have done this way. Let's move on, and we're going to do it this way. I'm sorry, So.
And I believe the climate survey issue came up in our work session, and I cannot remember the timeline, what we decided on the distribution of that, Dr. Daniel.
No, historically, I've sent it out to the staff. Usually it's late September, early October. I feel like we were talking about like March timeframe.
I think
we'd have to go back and look at the notes.
Okay.
But the state survey usually comes out in January. I think we had talked about March, and even though March is typically March feels like it's 3 years long, but trying to put that survey out kind of in that time frame, because once you hit spring break, it becomes a race for SOL tests, and everybody's kind of in testing mode. So if we were going to do one, March is probably that window, late February, early March, somewhere in that time frame would be my recommendation right now.
And do you think it's plausible that the board could get the survey questions prior to the distribution, especially in the first go-round.
Yeah, I mean, the survey that I've given to staff the previous 3 years has been basically the same 8-9 questions. And so if there are other kind of, I guess, things that we are trying to assess within the school, I can add those questions in, but my desire would be to keep that consistent going forward. So a new question, I think last year, the year before, was cleanliness and maintenance within your classrooms. So being able to monitor that as we've, put efforts into cleanliness and maintenance of classrooms. So I think is thinking through Ms. Bohannon-Stewart's interest in hearing about admin mistakes or admitting mistakes or correcting mistakes, things along those lines. If there are other elements that the board is interested in measuring, I think getting that early so we can have a baseline in the fall and then again in the spring and then again going forward. So.
Right, so I guess it's back on us then, and I think that's a great point. Members, how do you feel about creating some questions, or if you have thoughts or ideas to submit to Dr. Daniel, of possible incorporation into a survey? Not that we would want the survey to be growing, exponentially here, but, specific questions. I think having the ability to submit those to you for your consideration, and then let us know what you finalize. And members, how do you feel about that? Giving that input. And
I think that's a good idea.
I also think as we kind of relate this back a bit to our strategic plan,
Yes.
part of what we built into the strategic plan was that state DCJS survey. I think in hindsight, or having lived through the strategic plan a little bit, we may be better off to pivot and select a different survey instrument to gauge what and how we want to assess school climate. And so this may be a way to go about doing that. So, and I know at some point we had talked about a community survey too. But I think right now for this discussion, we're talking internally within our staff, within the school division.
That's my interpretation of this discussion at this point. Okay, so I'll get with each member on timeline for submission. It will be coming up shortly because you'd be looking at a September distribution or so. So expect a phone call soon. Any more discussion? Any more member comments? Mrs. Hodges.
Now that we're talking about owning mistakes, I misspoke when I referenced earlier about when there's a committee that replaces, that can replace the motion. I looked it up after I said that, and it was always my understanding, but that's a myth. So I own it. There's no need to, we handled it quite correctly today, so thank you.
We'll forgive you this one.
Thank you, Mrs. Hodges. That's very good. Anything else? All right. Moving on then, finally to item 11, other business by school board members or superintendent. 11.1, our next monthly closed meeting will be Tuesday, September 15th, 2026, 5 p.m., back in the J. Murray Brooks Auditorium at the Thomas Hunter Education Center. Same place, new name. Item 11.2, our next regular monthly meeting will follow that closed session on Tuesday, September 15th, 2026 at 6 p.m., same location, J. Murray Brooks Auditorium, Thomas Hunter Education Center. And finally, at item 11.3, our fall work session will be Wednesday, September 23rd, 2026, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Chesapeake Bank Community Room. If there are no other comments or questions by members or administrators, thank you very much. May everyone have a safe and wonderful start to this new school year on Monday. This meeting is adjourned.